good?
Yep, good to go.
Okay. All right. This is the part I hate when I share my screen. I think I lose visibility of everyone else. Okay, so just speak up if you do not see the slides. I'll assume you do. So I think everyone knows why we're here. Ben Beauty is excited to launch its first product since Gut Glow. And I know we've been kind of teasing this a little bit over the last couple of months. And I'm very excited to say that you probably can't even see this on my camera, but I have a bag pouch from the first production run of Inner Harmony. It just landed this morning, so it's good timing. So Inner Harmony, this is the kind of our more internal launch training. Like I said, please ask any questions along the way, and we have lots of time for questions, afterwards. So this title screen is kind of what we're using a little bit to promote the product, kind of from an ad perspective. We say stress out, peace in. That being said, the product does reflect far more broad benefits that we'll talk about in this particular training. But certainly stress is a focal point of the product's benefit. So why would we launch a product that helps people to adapt to chronic stress and the impacts of stress? Well, 50% of people in North America report being experiencing the constant feeling of being stressed, right? So that when we move away from the idea of acute stress and we look at more kind of frequent or chronic stress, at least half the population would subjectively kind of report that that's kind of something that they're experiencing on a daily basis. 70% of those people feel like there are health effects. So it's not just the uncomfortableness of feeling stressed, feeling tight, feeling anxious, but they're actually experiencing physiological effects due to that stress. And we know one of the things that stress does do, it impairs the quality of sleep that we can experience. And so 80% of people state that they want to improve their sleep. And we've probably heard the topic of sleep quite a bit over the last, I'd say, like 5 or 6 years. I see a lot of health influencers talking about it. There's a lot of technologies coming out to try to help people get back into the rhythm of having deep, restful sleep. It's very difficult in our kind of modern, very, very chaotic world. But sleep is fundamental to overall good health and well-being. And so this product is part of that solution to kind of get you back to better sleep quality. And you're probably familiar with this, kind of like our all-encompassing holistic framework. This is kind of the 6 major pillars of skin health, as well as healthy aging and longevity. Of course, the first 2, chronic inflammation and UV protection. This is really the domain of our flagship product, Renew and Protect. And then we introduced the Marine Collagen Plus cofactors. So that's number 3, restoring the lost collagen signaling that happens over time. Then we introduced the liver skin axis. So the skin being a detoxification organ. So when our liver is impacted, which happens as we age, we do start to see the manifestations of that through the skin. So Reset is there to help support, optimal detoxing or daily detox. And then we moved on to the gut skin axis with Gut Glow, which is a comprehensive formulation to address all aspects of gut health, gut function, and then hopefully, helping to ensure like what happens in the gut is not showing up in your skin. So that leads to really the last major pillar, at least, which is mental well-being. In clinical terms, there's something called the psychodermal axis, and this is just really based on the body of evidence that is showing that our stress levels, our emotional well-being, our emotional processing, these actually have quite an impact in terms of manifestations in the skin. So that's why we're really excited to finally kind of get this this new product launched and kind of complete the overall framework. So let's start by talking about what is the stress response. And we all have real life experience of what it feels like, but what is actually happening in the body? And so there's really everything is initiated in the brain, and there's a part of the brain called the amygdala, which is responsible for emotional processing. But then it communicates a signal to another part of the brain called the hypothalamus. And so there's really there's two pathways that correspond to the stress cascade, but they initiate in the brain. So the first one we call the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So this kind of chain of events, if you can see in this diagram here over on the right, the HPA axis. So it starts in the hypothalamus, communicates to the pituitary, also part of the brain. And then from the pituitary, it's sending out another kind of chemical messenger called ACTH, which is then going to activate the adrenal glands, which sit on top of the kidneys. And the adrenal glands really have two major components. One is called the middle component, which is the adrenal cortex, and then they have the outer part, which is the adrenal medulla. So in the adrenal cortex, this ACTH, which is secreted from the pituitary, is going to activate the cortex to secrete this hormone called cortisol. And most people are kind of familiar with cortisol. It is considered to be the main stress hormone. It is kind of far-reaching. It operates kind of on a systemic level, and it can have a lot of positive attributes to it, but we're going to talk about the negative attributes. But that's just the HPA axis. So on the other side of it, we have the autonomic nervous system. So once again, the signaling starts from the brain region, and it activates the autonomic nervous system. And so the autonomic nervous system really has two arms. One is called the sympathetic, and one is called the parasympathetic. You may have heard traditionally the sympathetic being referred to as the fight or flight response. So it's very, very activating. And then the parasympathetic is more the rest and digest. They do more than that, but it's a good way to kind of get a sense of kind of what their main function is. But those two arms of the autonomic nervous system really need to be very carefully regulated to produce overall kind of optimal well-being. So when the autonomic nervous system is activated, what it's actually doing under the stress pathway is it's upregulating the sympathetic arm. So it's upregulating the fight or flight arm of the autonomic nervous system. So what happens when we activate that arm of the nervous system? Well, we have a suppression of our digestive system. We have a significant increase in cardiovascular output. So you have an increase in heart rate. You can have an increase in blood pressure. You have also activation of certain kind of immune cells. And then there's all kinds of myriad of other chemicals that are activated. But the most important one to say is you have an activation of the heart as well as the cardiovascular and microcirculatory system. And you can see here I've written kind of the description. When we're in a stress response and we have this release of cortisol, as well as I should say too that what happens at the level of the nervous system and the sympathetic activation of the nervous system, they're communicating to the adrenal gland as well, but they're activating the outer part of the adrenal gland called the medulla, which is then going to secrete these additional kind of stress hormones called epinephrine, also known as adrenaline to some, and norepinephrine. So collectively, you have these three stress hormones, the cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine. They lead to an increase in heart rate, blood pressure, vasoconstriction. So you have the narrowing of the blood vessels. You have muscle tension. You have an increase in blood sugar levels. So that's part of, helping the body to react and respond to threats is that, we're going to increase the available sugar that's there. It is going to increase sodium retention. It's going to reduce immune function, and it's going to really take away all the activity from the digestive system because, when you're under threat, the last thing you want to do is sit down and have a meal. It's not going to digest very well. So it's really the reallocation of resources with the body. So we know there's acute stress and there's chronic stress, and so that cascade under the context of acute stress, you still have the release of cortisol and epinephrine and norepinephrine, but these are really good. They're actually helping the body to respond to a perceived threat, whatever that could be, something in your environment. And without that, I guess there's greater risk to you and your well-being. So acute stress, those are very, very good, the action of those two stress pathways. However, when they're constantly activated under chronic stress, you're now starting to disrupt the functioning of the HPA axis as well as the sympathetic nervous system. So you have dysregulation of those pathways, and that's going to lead to a whole myriad of different health problems. Over time, the body, similar to insulin, if you have too much insulin production in the body, you become insulin resistant, and that causes dysregulation of blood sugars. So in the same way, when cortisol is constantly elevated in our body, you become cortisol resistant, right? And so cortisol then goes from being something very valuable and beneficial to something that's actually quite harmful to the body. And so we see an increase in systemic inflammation, metabolic dysfunction, altered sleep-wake cycles. And so that's kind of where it's impacting our sleep, as well as overall tissue destruction. And with those physiological shifts, we can, everyone experiences stress in a different way, but here's kind of the list of the general kind of classical, outcomes or medical conditions associated with chronic stress. So we have anxiety, which we see a huge kind of increase in anxiety, as well as depression, even in kind of our younger generation today. A myriad of different sleep problems, chest pain. So once again, there's a major impact or pressure that's put onto the heart. That's why there's an increase of stroke, high blood pressure, and heart attack when people are under chronic stress conditions. You have digestive problems. We know that when you're stressed, and the activation of the sympathetic nervous system is really trying to take resources away from the digestive system. And so we're not properly digesting our food, so we can end up with digestive problems, headaches, muscle tension, body pain, overall fatigue, weight gain, because you have a dysregulation of your metabolism. So that is a major issue. It could be even extreme to the point where you have what's called Cushing's disease, which is a problem with chronically elevated cortisol levels. You can have skin inflammation. Cortisol that is acting in its normal capacity is actually very anti-inflammatory. So it's interesting that when we become cortisol resistant, we see an overall increase in inflammatory situations. It can lead to hair loss, problems with memory and focus, a change in their overall sex drive or desire, and ultimately we see an acceleration of the aging process happening with chronic stress. So those last two slides, I'd say, is a little bit complicated, and some of you, I think maybe based on your, prior experience, may, feel pretty comfortable with the overall kind of stress response in the body, how it works. I like to simplify things, and the way I really want to simplify the thinking about chronic stress is there's a head component and there's a heart component. So as you know, both of the pathways for stress are initiated by the brain, right? And so in chronic stress, we have overactivation and dysregulation of those pathways. So, if we're going to develop solutions for that, we need to have some kind of natural product that is able to modulate that initiating process of how we're reacting to perceived threats in daily life. But then, as I mentioned, there's a major heart component. So with the impact that chronic stress has on heart function as well as blood flow. So if your blood flow is not good, you're not getting enough nutrients and oxygenation of your tissues. And so that's what I would consider one of the major health risks with chronic stress. The high blood pressure, you can cause vascular or endothelial inflammation, so inflammation of your blood vessels. And when you have that chronic constriction, the narrowing of your microcirculation, the heart has to work harder. And as you know, the stats on chronic stress is that, it dramatically increases your risk of some kind of cardiovascular adverse event. So that brings us to Inner Harmony, which is formulated with clinically validated ingredients. So everything that Ben Beauty does is really based on the core science. We study the science, we look at the clinical dosages, and we make sure that we are actually being compliant with what the research is suggesting. And so this formulation of ingredients that is clinically supported to support resilience against stress. We can't eliminate stress. Stress is an important indicator for us in terms of how to react to our environment, and and no single product is ever going to be the only solution. Of course, lifestyle changes and learning how to cope differently to your environment is equally as important. But this product does increase resilience against the stress response. It actually enhances energy. And I said under chronic stress, a lot of people experience the opposite. They experience, fatigue and, and depression, etc. So this product actually increases physical energy, and a big component of recovering from any kind of situation is making sure that you have really rejuvenating sleep. So not so much about the length of time you're sleeping, but making sure whenever you are sleeping, that is high quality sleep. That is really, really important. So these things together really help you get back to what we call true vitality. So the formulation is pretty simple. It's really just 3 ingredients, but they're very, very special ingredients. And so, sorry, phone ring. So the first ingredient, we'll call one of the hero ingredients, is ashwagandha. Probably you've heard about this. It's one of the heroes of the natural products world. There are other products out there that do have ashwagandha. We've chosen to go with the most clinically studied, highest quality extract of ashwagandha called KSM66. And that the company that produces the KSM66 has invested a huge amount of time, money, and resources to publish a fairly large dossier of clinical research that kind of elucidate how ashwagandha has such a dramatic impact on not just stress response, but we'll see it's on other aspects of overall well-being. So the KSM66, this has traditionally been used as what we call an adaptogen, helping people to adapt to stressful situations. It's appropriate. The extract is from the roots of the ashwagandha plant. And those are the components that are the most studied and most clinically active, the ones that are coming from the roots. This particular extract is certified organic, it's sustainably sourced, and it is a full spectrum extract. So that's the nice thing about a lot of high quality extracts is that you get this full, you don't just get the standardized compound, but you have this full spectrum of other kind of supporting, phytonutrients. And as you know, with Ben, we're always kind of looking to choose organic whenever possible. So in this particular case, we wanted to introduce the organic KSM 66 into the formulation. So we'll say that ingredient is kind of like a big part, the brain component of the formula. And then there's the heart component is this next one called oxyjune, or more specifically, Terminalia arjuna. We can just call it Arjuna. So oxyjune is a very high quality, clinically proven extract. So it's a branded ingredient, a company that has taken the time and effort to really optimize the extraction and the standardization of the extract, and also to invest, not necessarily to the extent of what the KSM 66 ingredient, but there is a growing body of clinical evidence supporting oxyjune specifically for a number of effects. So traditionally, it has been used to support heart function. And traditionally, I mean, it's been used for, similar to ashwagandha, it's been used for over 1,000 years. It has a really, really long history of use in Ayurvedic medicine. It is an extract from the bark of the Terminalia arjuna tree. So the ashwagandha is from the roots, the arjuna is from the bark, and it is not certified organic. That wasn't available as an option, but we did find out that the ingredient is, first of all, sustainably sourced, and it is free of pesticides. So there's no pesticide applications being used for these particular trees. And of course, when they do extract the bark, they do it in a way that the tree can recover and grow back the area that has been stripped out. If you completely remove the bark from a tree, it's going to die, and we don't want that. And the third ingredient is vitamin C, but like some of our other products, we don't just throw in synthetic vitamin C, which is a genetically modified product from a chemical reaction of corn sugar. We use natural whole food source, so we're using acerola cherry, similar to our marine collagen. So there's just over 500 milligrams of this acerola cherry extract, providing this 75 milligrams of highly bioavailable, high quality vitamin C. So like it says, derived from acerola cherries, that also means that the extract is rich in antioxidants and phytonutrients. So you get that entourage effect. It's one of the richest sources of vitamin C in the world. And traditionally, it's being used in Brazil, where most of the acerola is being grown, is Brazil. And they use that traditionally to support energy and vitality. So it makes a lot of sense, not just from simply a vitamin C perspective, but what this whole food extract is, traditionally being used for to support energy and vitality. It is certified organic. So we have two certified organic ingredients, the ashwagandha and the acerola cherry. And then we have one extract that's not organic, but is pesticide free, which is the oxyjune. So first of all, you can see that the product is, I'll say it's in capsules, and because it's in a pouch, some people may be inclined to think that it might be a powder, but it's not. This is something that we decided that we wanted to introduce this in a pouch for environmental reasons, but it's a capsule. This is a trend that's happening quite extensively in Europe. So the last time I was in Europe, I saw that there was a lot of the encapsulated products that are moving away from the typical glass and plastic jars and more into these pouch formats. But this slide is really about the claims. These are the official claims associated with the product. So it helps increase resistance to stress in individuals with a history of chronic stress. So from an energy perspective, it has been used in herbal medicine as an adaptogen to help increase energy and resistance to stress. So in case of mental and physical fatigue related to stress, I'm going to touch on a little bit of the research that goes beyond that with some of these ingredients. But these are the official claims that we can use to promote the product. It does help restore sleep, and this is specific to sleep quality. So it's not necessarily going to make you sleep longer, but the quality of sleep, which is the more important aspect of that, is going to be improved. It does support the heart, and so Arjuna is traditionally used, as I mentioned earlier, in Ayurvedic medicine as a heart tonic. One of the other claims that is approved for the product that is not necessarily part of the main positioning of the product, but it does help support emotional aspects of sexual health, and that is really connected back to the ashwagandha. So there's quite a broad array of clinical research on ashwagandha that starts to kind of spill over into other areas of physiological and psychological well-being that's not part of our official claims right now. If we have opportunities to enhance or add to these claims over time, we will do that. We definitely will stay abreast of all the research that is emerging. So I'm going to talk really about stress, I'm going to talk about energy, and I'm going to talk about sleep. So the first major claim, which is the most important kind of benefit from this product, is increasing resilience against stress, chronic stress. So how does that happen? So number one, it's modulating the HPA axis, so that initial kind of a cascade that leads to that elevation of the cortisol. So ashwagandha specifically has been shown clinically to regulate the HPA axis, preventing overactivation of the stress response. So it doesn't eliminate the stress response, it prevents the overactivation, and therefore you'll have a reduction in cortisol, and that has been shown clinically. Oxidative stress reduction. So really all three of the ingredients have been shown in studies to reduce the oxidative stress. Of course, that's one of the things that we know is bad for overall health, is when we have too much oxidative stress and free radical damage. It's a big component of the aging process. So all three ingredients have the ability to provide support for antioxidant protection. There's cardiovascular support. So we know that Terminalia Arjuna, or just Arjuna, strengthens the heart and promotes vasodilation and improves blood flow, counteracting the cardiovascular effects of stress. So once again, part of that stress cascade through the sympathetic nervous system is putting a lot of strain on our cardiovascular system, including the vasoconstriction of the blood vessels and the extra pressure or stress on the heart itself. So including ingredients that have the ability to promote the vasodilation or vasorelaxation, whatever you want to call it, improves blood flow, and that's really essential when trying to mitigate some of the effects of chronic stress. And then lastly, immune and adrenal support. So we know vitamin C is very, very good to ensure optimal function of the immune system and adrenal glands. So when we are experiencing chronic stress, the adrenal glands start to consume a lot more vitamin C. So vitamin C is very critical to adrenal function. And so if we're kind of experiencing chronic stress, we definitely need to supply more vitamin C to the adrenal glands. The second is enhancing energy. So in terms of physical strength and endurance, based on clinical research, Terminalia Arjuna and ashwagandha both contribute to this concept called VO2 max, and which is the maximum oxygen consumption, which is a key indicator of cardiovascular endurance. So when even a lot of young healthy athletes are training, one of the things that they're measuring to assess how their overall athletic capacity, they're measuring VO2 max. Additionally, there is research that has been shown that ashwagandha improves muscle strength as well as power, and this is also in kind of a younger population. So a lot of studies will focus on more diseased parts of the population with like diabetes or pre-diabetes or obesity, and and show a benefit. What I like about this is actually being able to show physiological improvements in young, healthy people. And so that's kind of the enhancing the overall kind of the energy you have available even during kind of chronic stress. So the other aspect of enhancing energy is really exercise recovery. And so ashwagandha has been shown clinically to improve post-exercise recovery from fatigue. That's a really, of course, good benefit, helps us to get back in action faster. And Terminalia arjuna is effective in lowering resting systolic blood pressure, which can contribute to improved cardiovascular function and recovery from exercise. So you're starting to see a lot of these ingredients kind of both like they're playing roles kind of, you say a little bit in synergy, but there's really, I think there's only really been one clinical study that's actually tested both ashwagandha and arjuna in concert for athletic performance. So the last primary claim that we want to talk about in the clinical science that supports that. So in terms of improving sleep quality, ashwagandha supplementation has been shown to significantly improve overall sleep quality with a 72% increase in self-reported sleep quality in a study involving healthy adults with non-restorative sleep. So that's what we're really trying to do, is get people back into this restorative sleep, this non-REM sleep or deep sleep, as people would call it. And so that's a significant result, that 72% increase in self-reported sleep quality. Enhances sleep efficiency. So studies have shown that ashwagandha improves sleep efficiency, reducing sleep onset latency. So the amount of time, like once you plop into bed, for some people, it takes them a long time to actually fall asleep. And so that's what we call kind of a sleep onset latency. So reducing that amount of time between when you actually you're laying in bed and you actually enter the first sleep cycle, that is ultimately going to increase the overall sleep time. It modulates neurotransmitters. So ashwagandha does influence sleep by modulating certain neurotransmitters like GABA and serotonin, and those are two important neurotransmitters involved in sleep regulation. And then lastly, improves mental alertness on rising. So ashwagandha has been found to improve mental alertness upon waking. And so when we feel more alert mentally when we wake up, that is probably the best sign that we had a pretty decent sleep. So it does suggest that the subject is getting more of that high quality restorative sleep during the nighttime. So that brings us to it. If anyone has any questions, feel free, just kind of blurt it out here. If not, we'll have a little bit of a Q&A at the end here. So the next step is like, how do you take Inner Harmony? So it's capsules. So how many capsules? Well, for adults, you take 3 capsules once a day between meals and a few hours before or after other natural health product medicines. And you should use for a minimum of 8 weeks to see the beneficial effects. I hope people will see benefits much sooner than that, but of course the NNHPD has certain criteria for how to for labeling of certain products. And I think maybe at the end, in terms of like, why should you take it between meals and why should you take it a few hours before and after other natural health product medicines? Maybe we can ask Anna Jean or Jeanette at the end of this call to get their more regulatory kind of view on that, why that is required. From a retail perspective, one pouch contains 84 capsules. So the number of servings is 28. So you have 4 weeks supply. So pretty much a month supply with the 3 capsules daily. Like our other products, it's going to be sold in 6 units per case, and the suggested retail price is going to be $49.99. So this brings me to why would someone choose Inner Harmony versus, let's be honest, the stress category in natural products it's pretty saturated today. There's a lot of products, so therefore a lot of choice for consumers. But what I'll say is that the majority of stress formulas out there, and I've 26 years of experience in the natural health products field. I've actually formulated a lot of products in the past. They almost all really focus on this concept of putting in a list of different adaptogenic herbs. And now you see there's a combinations of adaptogens as well as sedatives. And not to say that those are going to probably have a benefit to the user who's using that, but what we're trying to do is elevate beyond that. And this is why I wanted to kind of help people think more about what is really going on when we're stressed. There's the brain component and there's the heart component. So in terms of the Inner Harmony unique selling points, think of the head and the heart. You really do need heart support or cardiovascular support or blood flow support when you're under chronic stress. It's just, you cannot deny it. It's one of the things that is directly related to the adverse physiological and psychological effects of experiencing chronic stress. We have what we believe are the highest quality trademark ingredients. So we weren't shopping around for the least expensive ashwagandha and Arjuna and vitamin C, that's for sure. We wanted to go with the highest quality organic, or in the case of Arjuna, pesticide-free, but high quality extracts that are clinically supported. These are the companies that are investing a ton of money into doing the research. And a good case in point about that not all products are created equal. And so we had, prior to actually having our formulation manufactured, we actually had another company produce some benchtop samples of Inner Harmony, but it wasn't using the Inner Harmony branded ingredients. It was just using what this company had, more generic ashwagandha, more generic Arjuna, and more generic acerola ingredients available in their lab. This is a compounding lab. And so when we got the first production batch back for Inner Harmony using the proper ingredients, you can see a huge, even though technically the same ingredients, the difference in color was quite striking. I was talking to Jeanette about this, is that the Inner Harmony capsules have this a little bit more of a vibrant reddish brown color versus the more generic version of the same ingredients. It was more kind of like a grayish brown. And so we feel really, really good about the choice of the ingredients. I do think that's a unique selling point about Inner Harmony. I already mentioned, yes, the organic and pesticide-free, the usage of the whole food vitamin C from acerola. So there's not a huge amount of comparative research on the whole food acerola vitamin C versus the conventional synthesized vitamin C from corn sugar. But there is one study that showed that while other forms of vitamin C are well absorbed, they're rapidly excreted in the urine. And so what they found is that the vitamin C from acerola cherry was a very different outcome. There was a much higher retention rate of that vitamin C compared to the conventional vitamin C. So not all vitamin C is created equal. We can now say that is, been clinically shown as well. So we feel really good about supplying the body with, we think is one of the highest quality forms of vitamin C from this acerola cherry. And you get all the other benefits of the other phytonutrients and antioxidants, polyphenols that are naturally in the acerola cherry itself. And we've had it, like I said, we did a few kind of benchtop samples that we did have some people kind of test and experience. Even myself, I tried the Inner Harmony kind of benchtop samples, and you kind of have it's a bit experiential. I personally noticed within the first dose that within 20 to 30 minutes there was an effect. So I could definitely feel something, but overall, the experience of people that have tried it for 30 days has been very, very positive. People have self-reported that, it does have an impact on their perception of their stress levels. A lot of, I'll even say one person who traditionally like has to take a nap every afternoon. She said that as soon as she started taking Inner Harmony, she didn't need to take that afternoon nap. There was no afternoon crash that was happening, so that was kind of interesting. And then some people have also reported that it did have an effect on their sleep quality. So we hope that this really translates very well to the broader audience, that they will experience the benefit of getting more support for that chronic stress impact, and sustaining the energy levels and improving sleep quality. So that's it for this little product training. I hope everyone was able to follow. I hope I was clear. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Or wait a second. So Jeanette and Anna Jean. So one of the questions that I kind of posed myself was just because I couldn't reference specifically why this had to be a part of the instructions of use, but it has to be taken away from other natural health products. Can you explain?
Yeah, well, so Health Canada had asked us to add that instruction based on, and I tried to look it up really quickly when you when you mentioned that, Mark. It's based on a book called the American Herbal Products Association, or sorry, American Herbal Products Association's Botanical Safety Handbook. And so there's a reference to Arjuna in there that it needs to be taken as you as you just said, before or after other medications and natural health products. But I don't have the actual safety information in front of me right now, but it's related to the Arjuna.
Okay. Okay. But I think that's probably fairly doable. I mean, a lot of people like to take their natural products, supplements kind of together at the same time. In this particular case, maybe you take it between meals.
Anything with people taking blood thinners and stuff like that?
That was not a requirement for the safety information. So I think it's probably, I mean, I think if you're on blood thinners, you should, that conventional kind of talk to your doctor, because, there's a lot of products that could have, some kind of blood thinning effect that we're not even aware of. But there's nothing in the literature that suggests that there should be an issue or potential contraindication.
One question I had was, we looked at the impact of positive impact on athletic performance, in particular VO2 max as an example. I've talked to athletes who are in the younger category, and then over time they develop adrenal fatigue from overstimulation and taking certain products. Is there an opportunity to position this to a customer in that demographic to kind of service an issue with adrenal fatigue?
Yeah, I think adrenal fatigue is another way of saying that you're kind of into that chronic stress, cortisol resistance. So this ultimately should be able to have a positive effect, because that's really what it is targeting. And
Yeah,
I think
okay.
we can, like, we obviously, there's the approved claims, but in terms of, doing product education, stuff like that, if there is a body of evidence simply around kind of young male and female kind of athletes, it's growing all the time. I mean, you've probably, if you are part of those circles, you'll probably hear a lot of times that ashwagandha is being promoted as a testosterone booster. So that is clearly not one of our claims. That wouldn't be a claim for any natural health product, because that would be more of a medical claim. But there is one study, so there's not high quality evidence to suggest that it does boost testosterone, but there is some evidence. And so this has kind of led a lot of people, both male and female, because testosterone is important for both men and women. It's not exclusively a male hormone, the same way that estrogen is not exclusively a female hormone. But we have to realize that a lot of times, things get shared quite quickly when there's not really robust evidence to support that. But ashwagandha has absolutely become a big deal in the fitness world.
Yeah,
And
okay.
but there's also evidence for Oxygen now that we can share with you the clinical research. There's really only 2 studies that were using Oxygen, and they were looking at things like VO2 max, cardiac output, perceptions of fatigue. So it's interesting that we may find that there is a connection with kind of like that younger, athletic, fitness crowd.
Okay. I also really like the second slide where we have the 6 pillars of like Ben products and how Inner Harmony fits in. And then I think back to our new website and how we can now sell bundles and bundle products. Is there one existing Ben product that would complement Inner Harmony more than others?
Yeah, so if you ask my opinion, it's going to be Renew and Protect, because there's also published clinical research that shows that omega-3s reduce cortisol levels and of course then reduce inflammation as well. So that would, and if we're kind of creating this kind of healthy aging stack, I would definitely say, Inner Harmony and Renew and Protect are probably like a nice 1-2. Chronic stress being a major accelerator of aging, and then of course we have the growing body of evidence around kind of like the Renew and Protect formulation, the carotenoids, the omegas, etc., that supporting this idea of aging slower or aging better, expanding health span.
Okay, thanks.
I don't know if the rest of the Ben team kind of has other kind of thoughts around kind of like what would you think is the logical pairing for Inner Harmony for other products?
I would put it with anything personally. So I think it's really, kind of on a case by case individual basis. If someone is experiencing chronic stress or sleep disturbances or just looking to increase their energy, I think, Inner Harmony is a perfect product, and they may also be really looking to address certain skin health concerns. So you might put them with Renew and Protect and Marine Collagen. If they're maybe focused on their gut health, there's, of course, a really strong link between the gut and the brain. So Gut Glow and Inner Harmony could be a really nice combination too. Could, really be 2 ways to tackle stress and emotional well-being. So that would be, I think, a good pairing. But I see it again like that, the skin climate system, all the pillars really working together to provide, that holistic approach for overall well-being. That's really, how I see it.
This would have been the perfect product to launch in 2020 during the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also I saw a stat recently that suggested, or didn't suggest, but based on research, said that over 50% of individuals that are were born in the millennial generation suffer from burnout. So that's, burnout is another way of describing this chronic stress syndrome, that burnout has become a major epidemic, in our society. And so we have all these young people now that are into the workforce, and, they've barely worked, a decade of their life, and they're already suffering from burnout. And it's not like it's always exclusive to work stress. I mean, people are carrying a lot of stress from all aspects of their life, but it's really alarming when, the younger generation is reporting such high rates of burnout.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah. And, in the more aesthetic world, I think anyone that's worked in aesthetics knows that, hair loss is one of the potential adverse effects of chronic stress. So hair loss can be, hair loss can, under stressful conditions, can be caused by different factors. For some people, it's going to be more autoimmune. In some cases, the hormones related to stress, cause the hair to kind of pause during its kind of telogen phase, I think. So you don't get the turnover and the restoring of the anagen cycle of the hair follicle, and just hair will fall out. Now, when you can resolve the stress, it typically comes back. But it's certainly something that a lot of more women have experienced. And then skin, just I think some of the literature out there on the psychodermal axis, you can see, conditions like eczema, psoriasis. These can show up as a facet of chronic stress.
I think we've probably all experienced too, when you don't have a good night's sleep, you wake up and your skin can be, in pretty rough shape too. I think that's a really common, relatable experience. So it's, very clear that if we're not getting proper rest, like truly beauty rest,
Mhm.
and really managing our stress levels, like it shows up in our face and our skin.
Yeah, in that way, it kind of ties into reset a little bit. Reset being kind of like your daily detox support, but during the deep sleep phase at nighttime is where the what's called the glymphatic system is activated. And the glymphatic system has only really been known probably for the last decade. It's a fairly new concept that's been uncovered. And so when we get into that really deep, restful, restorative sleep, you have the dilation of the vessels and circulatory system between the brain and the body that kind of open up, and it allows the spinal fluid and brain fluids to kind of wash the brain, remove a lot of the metabolic byproducts that accumulate during the day, and it helps to detoxify the brain tissue. And when we don't eliminate those metabolic products, we do know that leads to more kind of brain inflammation and brain disorders over time, including what we know as kind of like the characteristics of Alzheimer's, when we have an accumulation of these protein aggregates, these beta amyloid and tau aggregates that don't get cleansed out of the brain. Well, most of that is removed during the nighttime, during the deeper restorative sleep phase, and it's called the glymphatic system. So related to the lymphatic system, but exclusively something that happens as a phenomenon in the brain during the nighttime. Well, there you have it. I'm excited about this product. I know I've had a little bit too much stress in my life for the last 4 or 5 years, and having a chance to really experience the product personally. I've actually, to be honest, I've been taking it now for a couple months, and it's something I feel is going to benefit a lot of people.
Really excited.
Yeah. Really excited, and
Great
just
work. Absolutely.
for those outside of Bend on the call, our timeline to launch, we're really close. So we're about 2 to 3 weeks out from our official launch. So we'll make sure you have everything you need for supporting materials to get that out to your customers. And we'll also be kind of doing a repeat of this webinar with open to all of our accounts to come and attend and learn about Inner Harmony and get really comfortable and confident with the product. So lots more to come, but we are really close to launch. Really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think with the new packaging here, which it just says less stress, increased energy, improved sleep quality. So really having that prominent on the front of the package, I think will really help communicate that it is to do with stress, but it provides a lot of other benefits too. So.
Exactly.
And it looks beautiful on the new Bend Beauty displays.
I love it. Awesome.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, well, let's shut her down. And of course, if anyone has any questions, you can just reach out to.
Have a nice weekend, everyone.
Oh,
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Sally.
okay. All right. See you guys.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.